Law I. The architecture of power. Master the game, not the crowd. Do you think you're living free? Or are you being manipulated by a game someone else already wrote the rules for? And the most terrifying part? You don't even know you're inside that game. He who wishes to be obeyed must know how to command. Machiavelli wrote this 5 centuries ago, yet most men still haven't learned it. They confuse noise for power, applause for respect, and visibility for control. But history tells a different story. The true architects of power rarely shout, rarely seek applause, and almost never show their full hand. They write the rules quietly, while everyone else plays loudly on the stage they designed. Before we go further, hit subscribe right now. This is Ruthless Psychology, the channel that exposes the hidden rules of power, control, and manipulation that no school, no company, no leader will ever teach you. If you want to stop being a pawn and start thinking like a ruler, join us. Look around. Social media is full of loud men shouting for attention. They count followers, obsess over views, and chase likes as if that equals influence. But tell me, when was the last time a man with 10 million followers actually ruled anything beyond his own comment section? Visibility feeds ego. Power feeds obedience. And obedience is silent. The elite bloodlines of history prove this point. The Rothschilds didn't beg for likes. The Rockefellers didn't announce every move. Ancient dynasties in Asia didn't go viral. They went invisible. They mastered the unseen levers of influence, building systems so deep that centuries later, their names still echo. Power doesn't scream, it engineers. 1. Visibility is a trap. Real power thrives in silence. Imagine you're in a job interview. You want to impress, so you start talking nonstop. Your goals, your insecurities, your ambitions. You think you're selling yourself. But in reality, you just handed the recruiter a map of your weaknesses. You revealed too much, too soon. That's what most people do every day. Overshare, overexplain, overexpose. Every post, every rant, every update is a clue. Every clue is leverage. Julius Caesar understood the opposite. Before he became Rome's supreme ruler, he let the Senate think he was harmless, weak, just another ambitious politician. He stayed in the shadows. Then, at the perfect moment, he struck so hard that those who mocked him were begging for mercy. Modern proof? Jeff Bezos. He didn't build Amazon by posting motivational quotes. He built it on paranoia. Day 1 is survival. Day 2 is death, he told his employees. That wasn't hype. It was fear. A frame so strong that everyone inside Amazon lived in terror of becoming irrelevant. Bezos didn't need applause. He engineered silence into obedience. Mini hook. Are you chasing applause or building architecture? 2. Build multiple faces. Show only one. Authenticity sounds beautiful, doesn't it? Be yourself. Be real. But authenticity is just another way of saying be predictable. And predictable men are disposable men. The powerful know this. They wear masks like armor, one for negotiation, one for seduction, one for war, one for peace. Their real self, hidden. Not because it's fake, but because it's sacred. Think of it like social media. Do you show every unfiltered second of your life? No. You curate, you select, you control what others see. Now imagine doing that not for clout, but for power. Genghis Khan mastered this. To some tribes, he was a loyal ally. To others, a ruthless destroyer. To his soldiers, a godlike leader. Which was the real Khan? The answer: all of them, depending on what the situation demanded. He wore faces like weapons, and no one ever destroyed him because no one ever knew him fully. Mini hook. Which mask are you wearing right now, and who is using it against you? 3. Exploit information. Never overshare it. Scrolling TikTok for 20 minutes feels harmless, right? Do it daily for a year. That's 120 hours. The hidden cost of small leaks is massive, and it's not just time. Your words leak too. Most men can't resist bragging about their next move, venting about frustrations, posting emotional outbursts. Every word is a breadcrumb leading enemies straight to their weaknesses. The Machiavellian flips it. He listens more than he speaks. He notices hesitation, body language, slips of the tongue. Every conversation becomes an X-ray, every smile a clue. Talleyrand, Napoleon's advisor, once said, "Speech was given to man to disguise his thoughts." He almost never revealed his plans, but he collected every secret others spilled. Nations feared him not because they knew what he wanted, but because he always knew what they wanted. Mini hook. Are you shaping perception or trapped inside someone else's frame? This is the architecture of power: invisibility, masks, and information asymmetry. The man who masters these principles stops being a player and becomes the architect. He shifts from pawn to designer, from performer to scriptwriter, from visible to invisible force. That is why most men stay broke, weak, and manipulated. They never realize they are in a game, so they never learn the rules. They chase applause while the real rulers stay hidden, pulling strings, collecting gold, and multiplying influence. So remember, visibility feeds ego. Architecture feeds power. The choice decides whether you are forgotten like the crowd or remembered like a dynasty. But mastering architecture is only the beginning. Because once you understand that visibility is a trap, you face the next battlefield, the one most men lose before the day even begins. And that battlefield is time. Law 2. Dominate time, control reality. If Law 1 is about mastering the unseen game, Law 2 is about mastering the battlefield. Everyone thinks they control, but almost no one does. Time. Most men wake up already defeated, not because they lack talent, but because they surrender to other people's clocks. Notifications hijack their focus. Obligations drain their hours. They rush to jobs they hate, meetings that don't matter, conversations that weaken them. By the time they start their so-called grind, they've already bled their most valuable resource. Machiavelli warned that fortune controls the man who refuses to control himself. Time is the first and most ruthless master of all, and unless you dominate it, you'll remain its obedient servant. 1. Weaponize time like a tyrant. Picture this: it's 10 a.m., and you've already checked TikTok, Instagram, and email. You tell yourself it was just a few minutes, but you've already surrendered your most focused hours to distractions designed to drain you. By noon, you're exhausted and behind. You didn't lose because of lack of talent. You lost because your time was stolen. Elon Musk famously slices his day into 5-minute blocks, not because he worships efficiency, but because he knows control of time is control of reality. 5 minutes wasted is 5 minutes lost forever. Musk doesn't stay busy. He weaponizes time, turning every block into a missile pointed at his goals. Mini hook. Are you structuring your day like a ruler or stumbling through it like a servant? The truth: busyness is obedience. Slaves are busy. Rulers are deliberate. The Machiavellian doesn't hope for balance. He imposes order. Every hour answers to him. Every day is a campaign. Think of Napoleon. He ran entire empires, yet slept calmly, unhurried, because his systems were engineered to move with or without him. He didn't chase time, he conquered it. 2. Cut liabilities disguised as friends. But weaponizing time isn't just about calendars, it's about pruning. The most dangerous thieves of time aren't strangers, they're the people closest to you. Think about it. How many nights have you wasted on friends who do nothing but complain, gossip, or drag you into their chaos? Multiply that across 5 years. You've lost hundreds of hours you could have spent building empires. Machiavelli would call these people liabilities. And liabilities don't always stab you in the back. They rot you quietly. Alexander the Great once dismissed his closest general for weeping after a defeat. To Alexander, one moment of weakness wasn't just a personal flaw. It was a virus that could spread across the army. Brutal? Yes. But armies win by discipline, not sentiment. History offers darker proof. Joseph Stalin once welcomed an old childhood friend into his government. For a moment, it looked like loyalty still mattered. But when that friend showed the smallest sign of independence in a meeting, Stalin had him eliminated. Cold, ruthless, unthinkable, yet effective. The message was unmistakable. At the top, friendship means nothing if function is lost. Mini hook. Which of your friends are assets, and which are liabilities rotting your empire from the inside? The Machiavellian ruler doesn't keep friends for comfort. He keeps function. 3. Treat people as assets or obstacles. Here's the uncomfortable truth. There is no neutral. Every person in your life is either sharpening you or dulling you. Most men cling to relationships out of loyalty, nostalgia, or guilt. But the Machiavellian divides people into 2 categories: assets or obstacles. Assets sharpen you, protect you, extend your reach, multiply your leverage. Obstacles drain you, distract you, slow you down, or erode your discipline. Steve Jobs once told his team, "It doesn't matter if you like me. What matters is that we build something that outlives us." He wasn't collecting friends, he was building assets. That's why Apple survived beyond him. Machiavelli wrote that alliances should be built for necessity, not sentiment. When they serve, keep them. When they weaken, cut them. Loyalty is valuable, but only when functional. Blind loyalty to weakness is suicide. Mini hook. If your time is an empire, who in your circle is building walls, and who's punching holes through them? The Machiavellian rhythm of time. When you impose this ruthless discipline, your life begins to look very different. You no longer make time for distractions. You erase them. You no longer hang out with liabilities. You vanish from them. You no longer juggle commitments. You impose campaigns. Every hour becomes a soldier. Every day becomes a battlefield. Every week becomes a conquest. And the reward? Calm. Confidence, the unhurried aura of someone who knows the battlefield is already tilted in his favor. When others run, you walk. When others panic, you breathe, because your time bends to you. But here lies the brutal truth. Even when a man weaponizes time, even when he prunes his circle, even when he treats people as assets and obstacles, he can still be destroyed, not by others, by himself, because the greatest thief is not distraction, it is emotion. And unless you learn to seal your inner fortress, you'll bleed from within until your empire collapses. That is why the next law exists. Law 3. Seal the inner fortress. Emotions are leaks. Empires rarely collapse because of outside attack. They collapse because of cracks inside. And for men, those cracks are emotional leaks. Machiavelli knew this. In The Prince, he wrote that appearances matter more than inner truth. Why? Because the world doesn't react to what you feel, it reacts to what you show. A sigh reveals doubt. A flinch reveals weakness. A nervous laugh reveals insecurity. Each leak may seem small, but in the ruthless game of power, it can bankrupt decades of progress. Society today pushes the opposite. Be authentic. Be vulnerable. Express yourself. Sounds noble, right? But in the wrong room, authenticity is suicide. In war, honesty is exposure. In business, vulnerability is leverage. But for your enemy, not for you. 1. Emotional honesty is exposure. Imagine you walk into a salary negotiation with your boss. He says, "Budgets are tight this year." You sigh, flinch, and mumble, "I understand." In that instant, you just gave away the raise. He didn't even need facts. He read your leak. Alexander the Great once executed a general for crying after a defeat. Harsh? Absolutely. But Alexander knew one visible weakness at the top could ripple down to tens of thousands of soldiers. Perception of strength matters more than strength itself. Minnie Hook, how many times have you lost not because you were wrong, but because someone read your emotions first? Now contrast with Winston Churchill. In private, during World War II, he confessed despair in letters. But in public, steel, fire, resolve his people never saw the cracks. Because of that, they held the line when Britain stood alone. Modern politics offers the same brutal reminder. Richard Nixon didn't fall because his enemies outsmarted him. He fell because of himself. The Watergate tapes revealed his paranoia, rage, and emotional chaos. Those leaks didn't just cost him the presidency, they destroyed his reputation forever. 2. Control perception, not reaction. Here's a Machiavellian truth. Strong men don't suppress emotions. They redirect them. Rage becomes focus. Fear becomes foresight. Sadness becomes silence. Machiavelli advised rulers to appear merciful, honest, and faithful, but always be ready to act the opposite if needed. Appearances control obedience. Inner truth only creates vulnerability. Minnie Hook, would you rather be real and broken or unreadable and unbreakable? Think of the boardroom. CEOs who panic during crises watch their companies crumble as investors sense weakness. Meanwhile, calm leaders, sometimes pretending, hold their firms together until the storm passes. The difference isn't who feels fear, it's who leaks it. Here's the trick. Silence is more powerful than the perfect words. When you pause instead of reacting, you force others to reveal themselves, and in their reveal, you gain leverage. 3. Unreadable men are unbreakable. The most dangerous men in history weren't always the loudest, they were the hardest to read. Talleyrand, Napoleon's advisor, was nicknamed the Sphinx without a secret. He said almost nothing, revealed nothing, and yet everyone projected their fears and hopes onto him. That unreadability made him untouchable. Even Napoleon feared him. Now compare that with the average man online. He broadcasts every mood, anger tweets, depressive posts, cringe rants. He makes himself predictable. Predictable men are disposable men. Minnie Hook. When you walk into a room, do people instantly know your mood, or do they stop, hesitate, and wonder? Unreadability creates hesitation. Hesitation creates fear, and fear creates power. If no one can predict you, they can't control you. The rituals of the fortress. But sealing the fortress doesn't mean bottling everything up until you explode. It means building private systems to release pressure safely. Journaling your darkest thoughts. Brutal workouts where you sweat out rage. Quiet reflection or meditation where leaks drain without witnesses. Marcus Aurelius did this. Rome's emperor wrote down his fears in meditations, but he never leaked them to the Senate or his soldiers. To the world, he was calm, untouchable. The inner storm stayed private. That's the model. Bleed in private, return to the battlefield, unreadable. The cost of emotional leaks. Let's be clear, more fortunes have been lost through emotional outbursts than through bad deals. More empires collapsed from weak reactions than from enemy armies. Nixon again is the perfect example. His leaks didn't just ruin him, they eroded trust in the U.S. presidency for decades. Emotional leaks don't just destroy you, they stain everyone tied to you. Meanwhile, think of modern billionaires who seem robotic in interviews. Calm, cold, deliberate. That's not weakness, it's armor. And behind that armor, they make moves worth billions. Mini hook. Is your face your greatest shield or your enemy's favorite weapon? The Machiavellian transformation. To seal the inner fortress is to claim sovereignty over yourself. Until you own your emotions, you'll always be a puppet. The man who can be provoked is not free. The man who can be baited is not powerful. The man who leaks is not dangerous. He's prey. But once you master your leaks, once you can control perception, redirect emotion, and become unreadable, you radiate inevitability. You create mystery. You can't be cornered. Machiavelli would remind you, fortune destroys the man who cannot master himself. But the man who seals his fortress commands destiny itself. But even an unreadable fortress isn't enough, because perception isn't just about your emotions. It's about the entire battlefield. And if you don't command the frame, you'll always be fighting inside someone else's reality. That brings us to Law 4. Law 4. Command the frame. Bend perception. Before words, most men lose before they even open their mouths. They think persuasion comes from clever arguments or charisma, but by the time they speak, the outcome is already sealed. Why? Because the frame, the invisible architecture of perception, has already been set, and whoever owns the frame owns the result. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. In The Prince, he warned that men judge more by appearances than by reality. It isn't truth that decides outcomes. It's the frame through which truth is seen. 1. Own the frame or be trapped in one. Imagine walking into a relationship argument and hearing, "You're always the problem." If you accept that frame, you're already defeated. Even if you argue brilliantly, you're just dancing inside a cage someone else built. Every room, every meeting, every negotiation has a frame. The weak adapt to it. The powerful define it. Consider Steve Jobs negotiating with AT&T to launch the iPhone. He didn't beg them to carry his device. He reframed reality. This is the future. You either join me or you get left behind. He didn't play their game. He forced them to play his. Frame control can be savage. Hannibal, the Carthaginian general, once sought to force a Gaulish tribe into alliance. He didn't argue. He didn't negotiate. He slaughtered hundreds of prisoners in front of their chiefs, then hosted a banquet on the blood-soaked ground. No speeches, no debates. The frame was absolute. Reject me, and this is your future. The chiefs submitted instantly. Words persuade, frames compel. History is full of examples like this. Napoleon often walked into a negotiation and said nothing. His silence bent the room. His presence defined the frame before any words were spoken. Mini hook. How many times have you lost, not because your ideas were weak, but because you let someone else decide the battlefield? 2. Authority flows to the least desperate. Why does the silent man often dominate the room? Because desperation leaks. The one who fidgets, interrupts, or begs reveals hunger, and hunger is weakness. Machiavelli wrote that love is unreliable, but fear is steady. People respect what they cannot predict, what they cannot control. Authority flows naturally to the one least desperate to claim it. Think of Talleyrand, the French diplomat. He barely spoke, yet kings feared him. His restraint created gravity. His calm created inevitability. He didn't fight for authority. It gravitated to him. Mini hook. When you walk into a room, do people feel your gravity or smell your desperation? You see it today in boardrooms. The loudest voice rarely wins. The one who speaks last after absorbing everything carries the most weight. Stillness feels like power. Desperation feels like weakness. 3. Feed the mind relentlessly. Owning the frame isn't a trick you pull out once. It's a discipline. Most people consume information like entertainment, scrolling TikTok, binging random podcasts, reading shallow self-help. They feel informed, but remain unarmed. The elite study differently. They read not for fun, but for weapons. Rockefeller studied law and finance to build frameworks that let him dominate industries. Warren Buffett reads hours every day not to stay busy, but to stockpile frames he can impose in negotiations. Mini Hook: when chaos hits, will you scramble like the crowd or look prophetic because you armed yourself years earlier? This is why great rulers appear calm during storms. They've studied storms before. When markets crash, when wars erupt, when alliances break, the masses panic. The Machiavellian elite sees opportunity. Why? Because they own the frame through knowledge. The mechanics of frame control. Frame control isn't about shouting or flexing. It's rhythm. The man who delays his response creates tension. The one who waits for silence owns the silence. The one who defines the first interpretation locks it as the lens through which all else is judged. Psychologists call this anchoring. Machiavelli never used the word, but he lived it. Control appearances, and you control obedience. Think about parties. The first group to set the vibe, quiet chill versus wild chaos, decides how the whole night feels. That's frame control. Politics works the same way. The first narrative defines reality, and even retractions can't erase it. Mini Hook: right now, are you walking into frames or bending them to your will? Examples of frame domination. Talleyrand: his silence was a frame others couldn't escape. Jobs: he framed AT&T as desperate to keep up or die. Churchill: he framed Britain not as a victim, but as the last fortress of freedom. The world rallied. Modern CEOs, leaders like Jeff Bezos and Satya Nadella, don't just run companies. They set frames where their vision feels inevitable and dissent feels irrelevant. The frame is always stronger than the facts. Whoever sets it wins. The Machiavellian leap. Commanding the frame turns you from participant to architect, from debater to designer. You don't argue, you define. You don't persuade, you eliminate opposition. Most men remain trapped because they fight inside other people's definitions. But the Machiavellian ruler doesn't argue within a cage. He builds the cage, and when he's ruthless enough, he lets others think they're winning while circling inside his design. Machiavelli wrote, "Fortune favors the bold and punishes the passive." Boldness means taking the frame before anyone else does. Which brings us to the final law, the leap from dominance to immortality, from lifestyle to legacy. Law 5, legacy over lifestyle, immortality of influence. Most men crave visibility. They chase applause, status symbols, and validation. Cars, watches, vacations, followers, loud displays meant to signal power. But history teaches the opposite lesson. What is loud dies. What is hidden endures. Machiavelli understood this deeply. In The Prince, he wrote that rulers must aim not at being loved, not even at appearing rich, but at lasting control. Because lifestyle is fragile. Legacy compounds. Imagine your Instagram disappeared tomorrow. Every flex gone. Would you still matter? If the answer is no, then what you've built is lifestyle, not legacy. 1. Ruthless calculated risk is the foundation. No dynasty was ever built by playing safe, but there's a difference between recklessness and Machiavellian boldness. The weak gamble for thrill. The strong calculate for empire. The Rockefellers didn't wait for guarantees. When others feared volatility in oil, they expanded, seizing pipelines, refineries, and banks. Outsiders called it reckless. History calls it dynasty. Meanwhile, most people wait for security before acting, the perfect economy, the right timing, permission from others. But certainty never arrives, and so their lives vanish in hesitation. Mini Hook. How many empires in your own life have you killed by waiting for permission? The Machiavellian accepts risk as the price of power. Safety is slavery. Calculated risk is liberation. 2. Build systems, not status. Status screams, systems whisper, and whispers outlast applause. Buying the latest iPhone is lifestyle. Owning shares of Apple is legacy. One loses value the second you buy it. The other compounds while you sleep. Most men equate wealth with consumption. The flashy car, the rented penthouse, the vacation selfies. But those are cages made of gold. They enslave you to appearances and debt. Systems are different. Systems are engines, businesses, equity, royalties, real estate, networks of influence, structures that generate while you're invisible. They don't make you look powerful. They make you untouchable. John D. Rockefeller didn't flaunt luxury. He built universities, foundations, pipelines of capital. His rivals who chased appearances? Forgotten. Rockefeller built whispers that echo for centuries. Mini hook. Are you feeding your ego or your bloodline? 3. Wealth dies. Legacy dominates. If your wealth dies with you, you never had wealth. You had an expensive hobby. Real wealth survives your pulse. Marcus Aurelius lived like an emperor, but left Meditations, a book still shaping leaders today. Andrew Carnegie sold his steel empire, then built libraries across the world. They turned temporary fortune into permanent influence. But the most ruthless example is Nathan Rothschild at Waterloo. In 1815, after Napoleon's defeat, Rothschild got the news before anyone else. Instead of bragging, he spread false rumors that Napoleon had won. Panic gripped the London Stock Exchange. Investors sold in fear. Rothschild bought everything in silence. When the truth broke days later, he controlled the market. His rivals, chasing lifestyle, vanished. Rothschild built a dynasty that still bends global finance 200 years later. Mini hook. When you die, will the world reset without you, or keep moving in the direction you engineered? The Machiavellian psychology of legacy lifestyle is ego. Legacy is architecture. Lifestyle enslaves you to validation. Legacy frees you to invisibility. The man obsessed with lifestyle must always prove, always show, always flex. But the man obsessed with legacy doesn't need to be seen. His systems speak for him. His influence flows even in absence. This is the highest form of power, to vanish from the stage and still control the script. To detach your identity from your influence so completely that even your absence commands obedience. Machiavelli would say, men come and go, but structures remain. The ruler who builds applause dies with applause. The ruler who builds systems becomes untouchable even in death. The final challenge. So here is your choice. Will you chase lifestyle, burn years for validation, and die as another consumer in the crowd? Or will you build legacy through risk, through systems, through ruthless design, and leave structures that echo for centuries? This is ruthless psychology. Comment below. Which of the 5 laws hit you hardest? Write it, claim it, and let it shape you. And if you refuse to stay blind to the hidden rules of power, subscribe now. Because what comes next, they will never teach you. Legacy or lifestyle, immortality or applause. The choice is yours.